And we'll do our usual procedure, waiting minutes for attendees.
Nada's got the wrong sweatshirt on tonight. I said Nada's got the wrong sweatshirt on tonight.
Can you click on the, can you click on the attendee list there? Can you click on the attendees?
I did.
I just wanted to see.
Traitor.
Okay, I think we're ready to, so it is approximately 7:30. I am calling to order the regular monthly meeting of the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners and the High Rock Homes LLC Board. And I'm going to start by calling the roll because we have a virtual meeting. But I just want to note at the beginning that this meeting is permitted under the emergency executive order issued by Governor Baker that allows for hybrid meetings as long as there's appropriate access by the public. And this is orders in effect until March 31st, 2023. And we'll see what we're going to be doing after that. We'll call the roll. Ed Shriver here. Janice.
Janice Bennett is present.
Penny
Penny Kirk present.
and Eleanor.
Eleanor Evans present.
And Reg Foster is present, so we have a quorum, and I will just note for the record that the notice of this meeting and the agenda was published on October 14th, 2022 with the clerk of the town of Needham and provided to all persons requesting that. Before I forget it, thank you. Okay, so we've got a fairly full agenda tonight, so we'll try to move it along without, doing, any injustice to any of these topics. I'm going to start with three announcements from the chair. The first announcement is that we will have some guests with us. Not only Margaret Moran and Natalie Jansen of the Needham Housing, the Cambridge Housing Authority, who is our overall project supervisor and project manager for our preservation and redevelopment initiative. And we'll be presenting the results of a steering committee report. And most of the steering committee members, I understand, are going to be joining us. So that is scheduled for 8:15 today. Tonight, and so whatever we're doing as we approach 8:15, we will, put a pause on it so that we can turn to that. And the second thing I wanted to announce is that the Needham Housing Authority has been subject to a 2 or 3 year HR lawsuit that was recently settled between the last meeting and this meeting, and we settled for $50,000. And after doing a financial analysis, looking at our prospects of winning in court ahead, which we thought were quite good, but we would be expending quite a significant sum of money just in legal fees, even if we should win. And so overall, this is a net good result for the Needham Housing Authority. And I'm sure the Eagle Eye board members and other members of the public may have noticed some of the results of that settlement in the financials this month.
Also, I might just note, maybe I could just add that that the state covered part of that settlement.
That's right, half of it. No, 2/3 of it, actually, just about 3/5 of it. Is that, yeah, 35 out of $50,000. So thank you. That and also approved of us taking this action. Then that's another good point to note there as well. The third thing I just wanted to announce is that I was invited to go join the Net Buildings Working Group. It's like a subgroup of the Climate Action Plan Committee, which is rolling into action this fall. It was something that was approved by the select board a year ago, and again by town meeting in the spring, and is on the warrant this fall in less than 2 or 3 or 4 days for some money to fund consulting assistance. And this is very consistent with what we're trying to do in redeveloping or modernizing all of our facilities over a period of years. And so we're going to be staying in sync and lockstep with the town as they try to get Needham to be an overall net zero emissions community, hopefully by 2030 or 2050 or something, a little bit beyond my personal planning horizon, but we got to get started on this thing. So those are my announcements. I think we're ready to go into community resident input. Do we have any input from the tennis association?
Yes. Hi, hello, everyone. First off, we have 2 thank yous. One for the stop sign that's at the end of Seabed's Way, and also for the lights that have just been fixed.
Oh, they're on, well, good.
So we're very grateful for that.
Steve did not have to drive up in the dark tonight.
Right. The
She
other
would not have been driving up in the dark.
The other thing we have going on is the Mass Union Conference that's at the end of this month, right? The end of the 29th. We have two residents, but also a member of the TA going, Virgil Barber and Carol Briggs will be going, and Janet's going as well. And that's what the workshops are. Oh, okay. So the workshops are grievance process, rent calculations, and then wasn't there one more?
There's a state that and a federal.
Oh, yeah. I don't
Or
see the other one on
calculation.
here, but,
or
it's just a
Saturday.
one-day convention. Good information though, for people, which I think would be great. And I just want to say on behalf of the residents, myself included, is that I noticed, when we had one of our best tenants association meetings this past month, and people were glad to hear that Lori was going around. So I'm very grateful for Lori to be here. I know it's only part-time, but she's been really cooperative with the residents, and we're very grateful for that. So that's all for the tenants association.
Great. Any resident input from anybody else? If you're on the maybe we can go back to the attendees list there and see if anybody's got their hands up there.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Ross. Yeah, go ahead. Ross, we should be able to hear you. Go
You're
ahead.
muted though. Ross, you're muted. There you go.
There you go. Ross, go ahead and try to say something. Yes, we're not hearing you yet. No, he's off mute. He's fine. Yeah. Sometimes he has issues on his end. There's a turn on, we don't hear you yet, Ross. No, still don't quite hear you.
The volume of your speakers turned down, Ross?
So, I don't think you need to do the ask to talk thing there, Steve, because I think it's showing that he's off mute here.
What if he puts his hand down?
Well, he's got, that's working, but we're not picking up any sound. Ross, we'll just leave you that way for the moment and see if you can get it sorted out. I believe it's on your end. And we'll turn to anybody else here? Sue, do you have any comments or input today?
Once no.
Okay,
Because Jessica stole your thunder.
Yeah, she stole my thunder.
all right.
I do see where there is gonna be a resident meeting early November about the bird feeder issue, so I was glad to see that on the agenda.
Yes,
And I'm assuming you will send out a notice to those who are interested.
everybody will get.
Right.
Out of here.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we will go ahead and move on to other agenda items, number A.
Sorry, promoting.
I know it's on his end, it really won't work there, So, okay, agenda item A is review and approval of the check warrants. We have the NHA bill schedule check warrant totaling $243,995.77. And I must say, as I get more used to the newly reformatted reports that you've been, perfecting here, Cheryl and Steve, I find it's just really very easy peasy to go through them here.
If you want to keep going through them constantly.
Yeah, and so I will look to the commissioners either here or online here. Any questions or comments? For
I
Steve?
think they're a little bit repetitive. I mean, I like that you get the breakdown, but
Yeah,
I don't know. I think either one might suffice. I don't know. If we need both.
Yeah.
No.
Both.
You have the detail and then you have the summary sheet. I think you're talking about
Yeah,
on page. I like both actually, because I start with the summary
yeah.
and I go, are there any big numbers there? And then I go down to the detail one. So it's only one page or
Yeah,
two
so
pages.
There is one extra report in here.
Yeah, that's what I was.
And that would be page 25 is the purchase order law. We don't necessarily have to continue that. I just wanted to show you that we are up and running with the purchase orders.
Mhm.
Okay.
So everything goes through that and then it converts into checks, but that's just, I put that in this month.
Mhm.
It is the same, so we
Okay.
won't have to do.
I thought it was, there
I
was
see
a
what you
little
mean.
more in there for some reason. You're adding to it every month. I see.
Well, let's just,
No, actually, this was shorter.
let's leave it there. Let's leave it for a couple months.
Yeah.
If we really don't think we need it, then we can
Then,
always
yeah,
fine tune it.
then we'll be used to it.
All right.
It'll be good.
Eleanor and or Penny, any comments or questions?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, I make a motion that we approve this bill check warrant for $243,995.77 as detailed in our board packet. Do I hear a second?
Second,
I think that was Janice by a whisker there. Hearing no further discussion, I'll call the roll. Eleanor Evans,
I vote aye.
Penny Kirk,
Penny votes aye.
Ms. Bennett,
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Ed Scheidler,
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
and Red Foster votes aye. So that is approved unanimously. Now we have the High Rock Homes LLC bill schedule check warrant of $43,560.74. Are there any questions on that financial report and check warrant?
That's on page 29.
Yes. Next page.
43,560.
Eleanor, any questions?
Nope.
Okay. I will make a motion to approve this bill check warrant for High Rock Homes LLC for $43,560.74. A second.
Second,
Oh, Eleanor got in there. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll again. Eleanor Evans,
Eleanor Evans votes aye.
Penny Kirk,
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett,
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Ed Scheidler,
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
and Reg Foster votes aye, so that passes. Okay, we are now in agenda item number B. And we have minutes to approve. We have 3 minutes in the agenda, but we've only got two in there because we haven't gotten the executive session minutes finished. Let's take the first minutes for our special board meeting at 8:30. Are there any comments or corrections?
I have
Yes,
a
Jen?
comment.
Go ahead.
I was actually present for that meeting. And actually Eleanor was remote. It was like a debut meeting for me. And I want to be present.
There you go. So, great. Any other corrections on the minutes of 8/30/2022? I'm gonna see if we can, reduce the number of roll call votes by seeing if there are any comments on the 9/15/2022 minutes, and then we can approve them both with one roll call vote.
No comment.
Any comments, anybody?
No comment.
So wait, on the 9:15 minutes, I think, was I remote or not? I don't remember.
I don't know.
I would definitely.
We'll have our faithful minute taker check that and make a correction if necessary. Any other corrections? Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we approve both the 8/30/2022 minutes and the 9/15/22 minutes. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Eleanor Evans,
Eleanor Evans votes aye.
Penny Kirk,
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Dennis Bennett,
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Ed Scheidler,
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
and Reg Foster votes aye. So that disposes the agenda letter B. We're now on C, Executive Director's Report. You've got the floor there. Monthly financial reports. Number one.
So, just, these are the monthly reports from August 31st. Now, accountants were in last week, so we have the new ones, but, I don't know, if we're all in line with where we are on the time of the year. The September reports will be the quarterly, and you'll have them for your next meeting. Are there any questions that you'd like to respond to?
I had one question, which is, I noticed our overall cash balance was down a couple $100,000, which is an unusually big change. If we go to the flags here somewhere. Page 27.
It's 27.
27. So for the members of the audience, what I'm looking at is a report we get every month that shows the beginning balance in all of our checking accounts, of which there are many, and then the ending balance. And there was quite a significant downward trend. And
Okay, so that would have been from the $238,000 bill schedule.
what I looked at, because I meant to actually mention this to you ahead of the time, but I also looked at it. We had some unusual expenses this reporting period. One was the $50,000 worth of trans settlement expenses. And then there was a lot of big Cambridge Housing Authority bills. Yeah, all the first quarter bills and all the second quarter bills all wound up in this month. And I thought that was probably accounted for a big chunk
That
of
would be
it.
the biggest chunk of it. And
Yeah.
also, I think there was a large retirement bill this month as well.
Okay,
So that would have been the other, that would easily add up to.
Yeah.
200, because the retirement bill was north of 60, I think.
Yeah, it was big.
Yeah.
and again, I meant to mention that to you before, but I forgot to.
Yeah.
One of the things
Much of that comes back to us.
Yes.
From the town.
Yeah,
So-
or then we'll get reimbursed by also from the state for part of the settlement as well.
Yes.
And the town will be reimbursing us for the CPA eligible expenditures. They make us spend that first and reimburse it second. And I don't think we've gotten those reimbursements in, right?
Not yet,
Yeah.
but they've been submitted.
Great. I would just want to say, this is one report I actually look at every month, all the way back to the beginning, because it's really, to me, it gives me comfort when I know that we just have, almost $2 million of cash in our bank accounts against things that could go wrong. And it also concerns me when it goes down by a lot, and I just thought I'd use this opportunity to highlight that report for everybody here. Okay, onward to any other financial or management report questions for Steve? We have next the state annual plan approval, which is on page 69, the minutes that Cheryl took at our meeting last month.
Right, so last month we looked at the state annual report. We welcomed comments from the public. We had a couple, which you noted, or 3 of them have been added to the report, to the report, and it's ready to be uploaded into the state system. It's due by the end of this month, so it's ready to go. But the board has to vote on that annual plan. So you had it all the plan is not here, you had it last month. That was one of the 100 whatever pages it was. Many of it is just housekeeping stuff. So there's nothing else.
So we need to vote on the final
We need to
plan,
vote on that approval,
but it's not before us tonight. Okay, great. Next one is federal capital fund update. I'm wondering whether you want to hold that until we it's on the agenda twice. Yeah.
Did you want to vote on the annual plan?
Oh, we're voting on it tonight. Okay.
Oh, yeah, we have to. vote on
Okay,
it.
great. No, I didn't realize.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, any discussion from or questions for Steve from the commissioners?
No,
Okay,
There wasn't anything added new to the capital on the state side because most of it's programmed already. So we didn't have a lot to do this year to plan ahead because there's things planned over the next 3-4 years and the annual plan kind of goes out further. Just so you know, that's why there's not really a lot to consider. It's kind of this year's kind of a static plan from the last few.
because we have other fires in the islands with the same, right? Like paving and. all
Like,
all
well, this is for Linden Chambers, yeah, so, but they're all in there.
Yeah.
They're all in the program, so that we don't have to change them. They just were, on the state, you have to program out 5 years for the bonding, so they're all in the works. We've done a couple of state projects, already, and, we're doing one right now with the kitchen at 14-15 Great by now. So they're programmed into with the RCAT in our plan. So we didn't have a lot to do for the next year, which is like 2026, we were planning for. We didn't have a lot to add into.
Yeah, I know I mentioned that RCAT to you a few months ago, and I thought of it as something that we could use to refurbish the after-school program across town.
The RCAT, we cannot use that for that. The RCAT
Oh,
is a
because
state
it's state program. I keep forgetting
Yeah.
that. I rock it's now going federal. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that, but that would have been nice.
It would have been nice to have their help.
Yeah, okay.
any other comments or questions from the commissioners? I make a motion that we approve the Massachusetts State Fiscal Year 2023 annual plan as it was presented last month at the public hearing. Subject to the comments received as documented in Cheryl's memo that's in the board packet. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Second from Janice. Any further discussion? Hearing none. I will call the roll again. Eleanor Evans,
Eleanor Evans votes aye.
Kenny Kirk,
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett,
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Ed Scheidler,
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
and Reg Foster votes aye. Okay,
The next item was capital fund update, which we can join in with the.
we'll do that a little later on when we get to agenda item D4, okay, because it's interrelated with some issues with the repositioning strategy we're pursuing. Item number 5, bird feeder policy. update.
I don't have a policy for you to change at this point. We are scheduling a resident meeting for the 2 different sites in the second week of November.
Okay,
The first week of November, oh no, actually Tuesday, we have public meeting on parking issues at Linden Chambers. So, we're going to be discussing some of the issues that we need to address. The RFP for fee accounting is almost done. I just don't have it quite ready to tweak to you. I will email that out in the next few days. And that we are in the process right now of putting High Rock Homes financials onto our NHA web system. And Nada and Celine met with someone on the phone today, and they'll be meeting next week to actually try to make that happen.
That's great.
So, we're working to fix that. On the audit update, we don't have the final audit yet, but I will say there is one item that we're gonna have a finding on in the audit, and it's not uncommon. It is uncommon, but it's because some of the items over the years, some of the payments were not distributed properly within our programs.
Mhm.
And so they recommended things that we've already put into place now on distribution. And that's part of the whole purchase order system as well. So we've addressed some of it, and but that will be coming out as a final.
Are you expecting we'll be getting that before the next meeting, the November meeting?
We should,
Yeah.
we could have it.
Yeah.
Because that's.
Great. And next.
On the bank issues. So I didn't have this done in time for the board packet. I'm sorry, we don't have it electronically here in front of me, but, but in looking through our procurement policies, there is no policy on how we pay our bills. So, and it's probably really not a policy as much as it is procedure. So what I'm proposing tonight, and I'll read them out for everyone, is establishing this as a procedure which would allow for the electronic signature of checks, but also would be verification that the board asked about at our last discussion about it. So for Penny and Eleanor particularly, it's a 8-step process. And it was, my memo would say the housing authority will issue payments in the following manner. For a standard invoice for goods or services, purchase order would be processed by the purchaser. That'd be by the employee who's making the purchase or wants to make the purchase, and then approved by the executive director. As the purchase comes in, the invoice from the vendor, documentation of receipt of goods services, those go with the purchase order as paperwork to the financial specialist. A check would be prepared in the next check run. And we were anticipating doing check runs probably weekly, not necessarily more than that, and could possibly every other week, depending on the amount of business being done. The list of the checks with the invoice distribution report, which you see in your packet, would be prepared and sent to the board members signing those checks. So 2 board members are required to sign the check. And it'd be the treasurer or the chair in the treasurer's absence and 1 other member. And that list would be sent by email from our financial specialist. Those signatories would then acknowledge the issuance of those payments by a DocuSign of the invoice distribution report and return by email to the financial specialist. Any disputed payment would be held until the next board meeting. Payments could then be mailed or electronically delivered to vendors the next business day. And then the bill schedules with the invoice distribution reports will be placed as they are now in the next monthly board meeting for full board approval. So it builds in some safety items there, but it also gives the 2 board members who names will be on the check the opportunity to see the checks before they go out, see the amounts before they go out.
So, given that you, Eleanor and Penny don't have this, would it make sense to send them a copy and defer making any kind of decision
Sure.
on this? You're asking for input? You're asking for
Input,
approval?
yeah, if you'd like something changed, and then what we need to do is collect signatures from all the board members so we have them, and then they'd be in the electronic system. But I think that Janice asked particularly about seeing them before they went out. So this is kind of a way to see the amounts before they go out, and then they can be delivered out.
So, shall we defer any questions until next time, or does anybody
Yeah,
have
so
questions
everybody
now?
has all the
Yeah.
information at the same time, yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. This is pretty impossible, but
You can deliver that, and I will email them out tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Great. Well, this is great. Thank you. This has been a kind of a, difficult process for as long as I can remember, maybe back, including Cheryl, as long as she can remember, in terms of getting check signs and back to the dark ages of the Needham Housing Authority. So this is a great advance. Thank you. And then this second one there, Needham Bank Interest.
So Needham Bank contacted us because they're interested in our business. We do have a quote from TD Bank on our business, our banking business. And Needham Bank has approached us, so we've met with them, and they're preparing a proposal as well. They also spoke a little bit about potentially being in the finance part of our redevelopment. We have interest in there. They've asked for a meeting with our chairman sometime in the first couple of weeks of November. I haven't heard back from them yet as to the availability, but so we'll talk to them and see that. But it's going to have to happen fairly soon because we're paying bank charges that just seem to be going up and up and unnecessarily. Either bank will give us our services basically with no charges applied.
Ed?
Make a comment, please. Sure. If Needham Bank is very competitive, I would request that we give serious consideration to Needham Bank because they donate a lot of money to our after-school program.
TD didn't donate anything as far as it.
And
They weren't asked.
and not just us, they support a lot of community programs and you need them.
Yeah.
And in their banking area, they're known to be very proactive from a community support point of view. I would ask one question, and I don't know the answer to this. Are there any chapter 30B dimensions to doing a bank consolidation of bank services where one has to put it out for bid or something like that?
No, I've done this twice before. I've never had a problem.
It's not a,
But
I
if you do
just
it for
didn't
good
even know.
business,
Yeah,
I'll
right.
check it, but,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's not.
great. Any other questions or
I just want to
comments?
say, TD Bank doesn't give anything less than $5,000, and you are required to have the 501(c)(3).
Mhm.
And
Designation.
they're pretty hard to get a hold of purposely, I think. So, because they were contacted.
Well, we had contacted them because I've talked with TD Bank for 20 years, so I know a fellow who does the government banking. And they also have a branch within Stone's Throw of the office, so that was kind of an interesting side, but it's not the requirement. So we had a good meeting with Needham Bank. A lot of trips down memory lane, because
Yeah.
as I said, I'd grown up here, so yeah, they expressed an interest in me. I didn't hesitate to take their meeting.
Or anything else, Steve?
Let's see. No, that's all I have at this point. We have more coming.
So we'll go to
Next up, I think.
agenda item D, which is the quarterly report of the resident services coordinator, which is on page 73 of your packet. Go ahead.
So this is a report from Laurie. I mean, she hasn't been here for a quarter, so it's kind of an introductory report, but I've asked her to plan on giving us quarterly reports of activities and what's going on and what that will have gone on. So she did a pretty good one. And just for the board information. I think she's, as said earlier tonight, I think she's working out quite well with our residents at both sites. She's might have to buy more sneakers for her because she wants her. But no, she had very positive reviews and been very helpful. And they're planning at both sites a little celebration of Halloween next week. I think is it Wednesday and Thursday? Thursday, Friday, Wednesday and Thursday, right? Wednesday and Thursday. And then again, on Monday, Halloween itself at the after-school program, a little celebration. The after-school program will close a little early because as it gets dark, kids like to get out and go. And I'm looking over at Jessica, she's shaking her head, yes. But having said that, on the back side of that page, on page 74, there is a required motion actually by the state to request our resident service coordinator grant be renewed. So our state, we do have the state RSC program. Right now, we have this year we have budgeted $19,500 coming from the state, but it's allowable up to $22,310. And this year, you'll notice there we can apply for an increase to that budget, which we will certainly do. But it had by November 18th, I think we have to reapply online this year, which we haven't had to do for a number of years. But this year they're making everybody apply, even if you have a grant already, and there's room for new grants to reapply for. So,
What do you want us to do with this? Are we gonna take a vote on it tonight?
yeah, I need that the motion that's written there, the
Page 74.
on page 74, about 3/4 of the way down the page. That we approve and endorse an application.
I'll second that.
Who knows? Somebody has to make the motion. Yeah.
Well,
Would you like,
I thought it
would,
was already made.
would you like to make the motion? Yes.
Why not?
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that the Needham Housing Authority Board approves and endorses an application for the renewal of resident service grant for Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development.
Do I hear a second?
I second it.
Second by Mr. Scheidler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll yet again. Eleanor Evans
Eleanor Evans votes aye.
and Penny Kirk,
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett
Janice Bennett votes aye.
and Ed Scheidler,
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
and Reg Foster votes aye. So that passes unanimously.
Just to follow up on
yeah.
that, we have not heard anything back from yet on our Ross grant application. Nobody has yet, but we haven't been announced, so that would potentially add another service coordinator to our staff on the federal side, so we're hopeful still in that.
That would be a great move.
If we can get it, it would be wonderful. It is competitive, though I don't know how we'll decide, but we have a good application and we're hoping that comes through.
When do we expect to hear?
Well, the application is due in July, so it's HUD. Could be late November, early December. I would think they'd like to get it done by the end of the year.
Well, it's not too far away.
No, it's not too far. We should get it.
Anything else?
That's all for my report. Thanks.
Great. We'll go to the search committee status report and Janice Bennett, chair.
Say that again?
Search committee status report.
Um. I'd like to make a motion that we,
You probably should basically report first.
okay.
And
well,
and
I
what's
just
going
wanted to
on?
report that we had a resignation of Karen Dewey due to some family obligations. And we have another person that I would like to motion to be for a vote to be put onto the committee, so we can have 5 people, and his name is Jim Burke, and he's a lawyer, and he's a very kind person from what I understand, and speaking with him on the phone, he is very interested in being a member of the committee.
Great. And how's the search going?
The search is going good. It was just 2 days ago. We received a small batch of 4 resumes from Rick Lecco. And I have copies of it for Jim if he shows up tonight. I thought he was gonna make it here, and like I said, we just got them 2 days ago, so I wanted to give people the weekend. I mean, I've already gone through them. A few other people have also. But I want to give people the weekend and then come back and, get a few ideas and then I'm gonna call for another meeting. I know that Steve has reached out to Rick Lecco, but, with no offense, Steve, I chair this committee and I'll be calling the meetings when and where I see fit. Your office is too small for 5 people. So I'm gonna be requesting that we use 28. And with respect to that, I would like a key. So I can go in there and prep for our meetings.
Okay, I have spoken with Jim Burke also. And he is an excellent replacement for Karen Huey, who is in the Linden Chambers neighborhood, and Jim Burke is in the Linden Chambers neighborhood. And he is very enthusiastic about being nominated to be a part of the committee, so I would second the motion.
Well, I haven't made the motion yet, but
Well,
what you want to do is make a report from the committee, what's happening, what's going on, and then, and so forth and so on. And then, reporting you found a good candidate and so forth, but seeing if there's any other questions on how things are going here. So, and then we'll go to the motion. I'm not
Yeah,
saying.
well, like I said, we just got 4 resumes.
Yeah.
We just got them. I
Yeah.
mean, so we haven't had anything to work with.
Yeah, no,
Right, too.
I understand that.
So-
Are they looking
so-
promising is my question, I guess,
Uh,
because I'm biting my fingernails here.
we have to leave you out.
Yeah, well, I have been, but
Yeah, I'll give you
it-
someone's from New York.
okay. All right,
So,
anyway,
So make your motion.
and well, let me just check with Eleanor and Penny, if you have any questions here.
Penny does.
Yeah, I'd like to just support the choice of Jim Burke. I've known him now for 15 years and he's steady and very smart. And he'll be a great contribution to the committee.
Great. Okay, now Janice.
okay, I would like to make the motion that Jim Burke be admitted to the committee that search for. a new
Appointed,
ED.
yeah.
Oh,
Appointed to the committee,
appointed,
yeah,
okay. I would like for him to be appointed.
great,
I would second that motion.
good. I have one question. I do not know Jim Burke, but gives me good feeling that everybody else does, and it feels like he's a good choice. And when I say I don't know him, of course, I know of him and
Yeah.
have run across him, but have never really done anything. My one question is, maybe it's probably an obvious answer, but you've already checked with him and he's got the time and
I've spoken to him on the phone.
interest in doing it.
Yeah, he has a vehicle, he can get around perfectly well, because I did offer
Yeah.
him transportation, I didn't know if he drove, but.
Well, part of it's a transportation thing and part of it is, there, you got to roll up your sleeves and there's often a lot of meetings and, it may take, that next batch may
I
take
think he's
another
pretty
couple of
eager,
batches.
so I'm speaking with
Great.
him.
Good,
So,
all right. Any questions from Eleanor or Penny or comments? Hearing no further discussion, I will call the roll on approving Janice's motion to appoint Jim Burke as the replacement for Karen Huey. Eleanor Evans
Eleanor Evans votes aye.
and Penny Kirk
Penny Kirk votes aye.
and Janice Bennett
James Bennett votes aye.
and Ed Scheidler.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
And Rich Foster votes aye, so that's good. So
We already did,
we are at 8:15. Thank you very much. How are we doing in the attendees there? No, we don't have,
how long has joined us?
oh, great. I see you've been promoting them. Great. And anybody else waiting to get in is what I was just making sure. Great. Just by way of background, the Needham Housing Authority received a grant of CPA funds to hire a designer architecting firm to proceed forward for the next 15 months to come up with a real plan for redeveloping Linden Chambers, including addressing all the issues And we have with us tonight, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, Margaret Moran and Natalie Jansen from the Cambridge Housing Authority. They are going to describe and present what we also have in our packet on page number, where'd it go? 75. The recommendations of a local selection committee that's been working very hard for the last few weeks here. I don't know, Margaret or Natalie, or which one of you is going to take it forward here?
I'll let Natalie take it since she led the process for us.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be back. Before I start, I just want to give a shout out to two other local screening committee members who are here today with us. We have Helen Gregory, as well as Stephen Merritt, who is also on the local screening committee. So I'm gonna
Just for everybody else, this has been everybody else's benefit. Who else was on the screening committee?
Yeah, so Chad Riley was on the screening committee, as well as Karen Huey.
And we all know Karen, but who is Chad?
Chad Riley is an architect who is from Needham and lives there too.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. So I'm here on behalf of the local screening committee to recommend that the board approve the interim executive director or his designee to enter into a contract for architectural and engineering services for the redevelopment of Linden Chambers Street with Bargman, Hendry, and Archetype. And for the total amount of $2,274,250. And so we created a board memo, which is in your packet. But what I'm going to do right now is to briefly go through some of the key parts, both how the RFS came to be, and then also the process for selecting the architect and the types of qualities that we looked for in an architectural and engineering team. So with the approval of the Department of Housing and Community Development, the Needham Housing Authority issued an RFS, a request for services for architectural engineering services for the redevelopment of the Linden Street and Chambers Street properties, both state public housing. The RFS was essentially broken out into two different parts. The first phase was for a total A&E fee of $1.4 million, which was for the essentially master planning and schematic design of the entire site. And this would essentially allow the Needham Housing Authority to move forward with getting the required zoning approvals to do any new construction on the site. The second part of the request for services was for what's defined as phase 2, but essentially first phase of construction with an architectural fee of $868,000. And that was to do a smaller project of roughly 48 units as a first stage of the redevelopment of the two properties. And so the RFS was issued on August 3rd. On August 22nd, NHA received a total of 6 proposals from qualified architectural firms. The process from there, given the fact that it's a state public housing development, included the CHA. We pulled references for all of the architectural firms who submitted, and then shared those references and the proposals with DHCD at the state level. Has a designer selection committee, which essentially reviewed the proposals that NHA had received, and then selected 4 of those proposals for those architectural teams for the local screening committee to interview. And as well as part of that meeting, they approved the local screening committee that I know that there have been some discussions with the board earlier. And so the job of the local screening committee was essentially to then take the proposals and interview the architects and essentially rank the architects based on a variety of items that the RFS said that we would score the proposals and the teams on. And so the interviews with the architectural firms took place. Sorry, I should also say the four architectural firms that were approved by the designer selection committee for the local screening committee to interview was Abacus of Boston, Massachusetts, Barbman Henry, an archetype also based in Boston, BWA Architects, also in Boston, and Icon Architecture, also in Boston. So the local screening committee dedicated a lot of time towards reviewing the proposals, the references, and also interviewing these four teams. Those interviews took place between October 5th and October 12th. And as part of the interviews, we asked each of the architectural teams to put together a 30-minute presentation that would essentially talk about their experience, providing at least one example and highlighting their experience with green design and resiliency, their experience with doing resident and community engagement, the experience that they have working with the sub-consulting team that is underneath the architectural firm, their ability to manage schedules, as well as their experience working on affordable housing developments of the type of scale and scope of the Linden Chambers redevelopment. And so each architecture of the four architectural teams were interviewed, but the firms were evaluated based on a number of items. They were evaluated based on the written proposal that they had submitted as part of the RFS, the interviews and the presentations that took place, the references that they had provided, as well as looking at their experience, ability, and capacity to take on this type of a project, as well as their approach to diversity on their teams. And so based on this analysis and thoughtful review of the proposals and interviews, the LSC unanimously ranked the proposals that were provided. The top firm was Barbman Henry and Archetype, and I'll talk a little bit about why that team stood out as the most qualified to take on the Linden and Chambers Street redevelopment. The second team was Icon Architecture, the third was BWA Architects, and the fourth was Abacus. So for BH+A, that's Barbman Henry and Archetype, some of the comments that the LSC had was they had significant experience doing affordable housing as well as phased development, which is a very likely aspect of the Linden Chambers redevelopment. And they also had significant experience doing this type of work with public housing authorities. The LSC was very impressed by the presentation, generally felt that it was very thoughtful in its approach to this specific project, that they had thought through the schedule, as well as how to approach budgets. They had experience doing permitting projects in Needham, which was definitely a plus. And they, specified key challenges and opportunities that the project has. The LSC also felt that the firm had the depth and the experience to take on this type of a project. Of the teams you submitted, they're on kind of the middle to larger end. So they have a pretty deep bench, and their bench has expertise in different parts that are relevant to this project, including the design of senior community spaces. They've done a lot of them, as well as doing units for senior disabled households. And so that was really what made Barbman Henry and Archetype stand out as the most qualified firm to take on this project. The board memo also has their references. There are 3 references All of them received the highest score of 4 out of 4. 2 of them were from Public Housing Authority. One was from the Medford Housing Authority, and one was from the Cambridge Housing Authority. And there was also one from the Needham Building Design and Construction Department. And so what the references pointed out was that these were 4 projects that were, although not new construction, they're similar in scope in terms of being very large public housing revitalization projects. They talked about how BH Plaza has really shown an ability to meet project milestones, to produce construction drawings that are of high quality, and to really provide a high quality of design that is transformative for communities. And so with that in mind, just talking a little bit about the funding, the total cost of the A&E fee was in the request for services. It is set by DHCD, and it is for these 2 phases. So the first phase is essentially the master planning of the entire site, doing schematic design, and then working with the team to get zoning approvals for the site. For that was $1,406,250. The second phase is the first phase of construction, and the A&E fee for that is $868,000. In total, that's $2.274250 for the A&E contracts, and there is funding available to cover this work. So as Reg mentioned, there was a CPA award of $1.386 million, as well as $1.25 million in ARPA funding that can be used to cover these A&E fees. But of course, the contract will include NHA's right to suspend the work if it needs to secure more financing. So that is my brief rundown of the board memo that was submitted. Helen, Steve, do you have any additional comments that you'd like to add?
Steve, why don't you go first?
Okay, Natalie's got it pretty well covered. There were 4 very good firms. I think Barwin came out on top by enough that it was noticeable, and they were just very thorough, and their relationship with the town of Needham helps as well. Because they are aware of the issues of permitting and stuff in town. I just thought they were just, like I said, a click or 2 ahead of everyone else. But we really couldn't have gone wrong. I don't think. But this is very right to go.
So we had 4 good choices. Is what you're saying.
Choices.
That's great. Helen, Gregory, our citizen representative on the local selection committee. Any further comments from you, or
I think it's been covered really well. It was an honor to serve on the committee, and like Steve and Natalie said, I mean, 4 strong candidates, and this one was definitely the leader, but they were all very strong.
Well, great. So I'll go to the board now. And I just want to make a comment we said when we were starting this process and putting the RFP out. I'll just remind everybody that actually the DHCD process of selection that you have to follow mandates that board members are not involved up until this point in time, that we are to designate a local selection committee. The reason we did that is if we did not do that, then the state selection committee, designer selection committee, would have made the pick for us. And the recommendation, strong recommendation from the Cambridge Housing Authority is that we should put together a very good local selection committee and let them make the final pick amongst the top unranked 4 that we received from the state designer selection committee. So that's the context where we are all receiving this report for the first time. And I think it goes without saying, but I will say it anyway. This is a pretty big decision. So I want to make sure that, any questions that any board members have, of any kind that we get that addressed to our satisfaction. So can I call on you, Janice, to go first, or would you rather somebody else go first?
No, I'll go first.
Go
And
ahead.
I think it's a great idea that, we fall back on the committee because we want to be able to pick what we want, and not have the state do it for us.
Mhm. And I'll ask you a leading question since you're going through this for the first time. But, do you feel confident that the local selection committee has done a great job and, the report that we've received, really spells out the background and criteria and rationale for what we're going to do in a moment, if we do it, which is to approve BH&A as our partner, designer firm.
Okay, well,
going
I'll
forward.
just say this, I'll just reiterate what they said. They had 4 great firms. And it was a tough call from what I gather. And I'm glad they came to their decision.
Well, and that's good because sometimes you put one of these things out, as we know later in the agenda, and you only get one response, and it doesn't really work out. And so that we got these good choices really bodes well for this project, in my view.
I have a lot of respect for the chart, so,
Yeah. Ed, can I go to you next?
I thought the way the selection designer committee was put together and the thought that went into that impressed me. And in reading what's in our packet here fairly thoroughly, I was very impressed with the whole process. So I certainly give my support.
Great. And any questions for them? No. Great. I'm going to go to you, Penny, next.
Looks like it was a very thorough investigation. I read every word about all of them, and I agree, they all seem quite qualified. But I'm ready to accept the judgment of the committee.
Super. And Eleanor, you're next.
I agree. The process seemed very thorough, and what with the committee doing their hard work and then DHCD doing that first cut. So, I was very impressed, and the connection with the other projects in Needham is a nice one as well.
Super. And I too read every word on this report, which I thought was very well done. Thank you, Natalie, and your team for really spelling it out. It's very hard to sometimes summarize, everything as clearly as this. So you really understand what the choices were and what the criteria are and so forth. So I thought it was very well written. I too think a very good job was done. I did find a typo, however, in it, which I think everybody will find very highly amusing. If you turn to page 79, so it's reference number 3, Hank, it says Hank Hill, Town of Needham, Building Design and Construction Department. Part of the reason I want to call this out is BH&A is actually been hired by the town of Needham to do the Emery Grover redesign project, which is a very big deal for the town. So that's very interesting that they got the top 4/4 score, which is, like you did a really great job score from Hank. But those of us who know Hank knows that his last name is not Hill. It's Haff, Haff. It may look like LL, but it's HAFF. And I just thought that we might want to my guess is parties beyond us are going to ask us to look at this report in town of Needham. We might as well get that one fixed. And I also wanted to just state that this Hank's actual title is Director, Building Design and Construction Department for the town of Needham. And what does that mean? The town does enough construction, so they have somebody of the stature and experience to be their own owner's project manager. So when Hank is the guy who oversees for Needham, when Sunita Hill School was built, a very big, much huger project than us, he's the one that does it. Emery Grover, any of these really big public works projects that we've been doing. So that's the guy who was giving this firm a 4/4 rating here, so that gives me a lot of comfort as well. And I just want to kind of get that in the record, actually, because when we're encountering problems a year from now, yeah, we're doing like, how did we make this decision? Kind of getting that in the record. Any other comments from the board? Hearing none, I will call one of our more important roll call votes we've ever done since I've been here. Eleanor Evans. How would you?
Eleanor.
Oh, no, wait, sorry.
Proposal.
All right.
Yeah. I will make the motion that the interim executive director of the Needham Housing Authority or his or designee is hereby authorized to enter into an architect/engineering contract. The redevelopment of Linden Street and Chambers Street elderly development with Bargman, Hendry, and Archetype Inc. of Boston, Massachusetts, in the amount of $1,274,250 pursuant to the October 13th, 2022 memorandum as corrected from Natalie Jansen to Stephen Merritt. Do I hear a second? Second. Bennett. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will now call the roll. Eleanor Evans
Eleanor Evans votes aye.
and Penny Kirk
Penny Kirk votes aye.
and Janice Bennett
Janice Bennett votes aye.
and Ed Scheidler
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
and Rich Foster votes a big aye. Okay, thank you, everybody. That was great. We now have the rest of our sort of PRI status updates, and we also have our Cambridge Housing Authority guests with us here today. So if you had any questions you've been saving about the project for them, this is the time to ask them. So I'll just run through this. Any questions about our monthly status report from the Cambridge Housing Authority from anybody, any commissioner?
No.
Okay. The next two items is something that Cambridge Housing Authority and Steve would like to present to us. Next three ones actually, which is repositioning options, timing issues with respect to obligating the various fiscal years, capital fund program. And those two is what we're going to talk about. What's the best way to get into this, Steve and Margaret and Natalie here?
So I think
Maybe you should start.
I'll start with the timing issue
Yes.
that we're facing.
Great.
So under the public housing program, we receive capital funding for capital needs through our 5-year plan and from HUD. And you don't receive the money until you have until you spend it actually. But there are obligation deadlines attached with each year of funding. So what we're looking at, we have, if you're 19, 20, 21, and 20.
Can I call everybody's attention to page 71 here?
Yeah.
While you're talking, I think that's
Is it in there?
page 71, yeah. Because it makes it a lot of sense,
Yeah.
what you're about to say, I think.
Thank you.
That's
There
it,
we go.
right there.
So I did prepare this chart for you. If you look at left to right, the top lines, the third and fourth line show the obligation end date and disbursement end date. So what that means is we have 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 on here.
Can I ask you, why do we have so many years?
It's always 5-year plan. It's
Yeah,
a rolling
okay,
5-year
but why
plan.
isn't the earlier ones already obligated?
That would be a question that would be above my pay grade.
I thought you said that it was because they were delayed due to COVID.
Well, COVID extended, so I'll explain that
They're all
in here,
stacked up. Yeah, all right.
But the reason why they're not obligated, it's not necessarily COVID, but
Mm.
that does affect one of the dates, a little oddity, but actually Margaret had picked up and asked about too. But the FY18 grant is 90% obligated, and there's been money drawn down, and the rest is obligated for actually deciding at 28 Robert Cook Drive. And if you move to 2019, you see the obligation there of the rest of the residing of Robert Cook, 28 Robert Cook Drive. So that part is obligated, but there's still a list of 241. Well, there's still money that needs to be obligated from that fund, and that deadline on obligation, which means a signed contract to do something for 90% of that grant, is April 15th of 2023. Each grant comes out with a 2-year opportunity to obligate. 2019 was extended till April of 2023 due to COVID. So that got actually a 2-year extension. When we move to fiscal year 2020 grant, you'll see it's obligated for 2024. Again, COVID extended that one 2 years, and there's been no obligation there, and it's $328, almost $329,000. Fiscal year 2021, the obligation grant is February of 2023, which on its surface says, well, why would that be sooner than the other? But there was no extension on the 2021 grant because COVID was not a pandemic as it was. So that deadline is the first one coming up, and that's February 22nd. The next one is fiscal year 2022, which is our newest grant. And that's we'll have a 2024 deadline for obligation. The next line is the disbursement, and that's when you have to have it spent. So again, you get 2 years after the obligation date. So we're not in any situation there, but the obligation has to happen before, like for the 21 grant before February 22nd, and the 19 grant before April 2023. So that's what we're up against for money, and what the big amounts that we have in there in the plans that were formulated through the EPIC program at HUD shows the roofs here at Cook's Bridge, Cook's Drive, Robert Cook Drive being done for the amount of $285,000. And quick math will tell you that that would just about do the whole 90% of the 2021 grant and get it obligated and potentially done. What the flip side of that, and this is where Cambridge can come in and help us explain, that will affect the condition of the development. And the condition of the development is part of the calculation in what program can be accessed to reposition, or how much money, or how many.
In other words, they won't be as needy as they were without the roofs.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So we'll get less money.
Well, it's different. I mean, we would get right away. It's almost $650,000 that we have work to do, and between the roofing and paving and sidewalks, that would eat up most of that. But it will also improve the quality of the condition, which is what you pointed out. So
It's a conundrum.
it is.
Well, and that maybe is a segue to Margaret, you or Natalie. I think what you're saying, I hear you saying, Steve, is we have a bird in the hand, a very significant amount of money. And we certainly definitely have a need to fix the roofs.
Absolutely, with both of those roofs and sidewalks and roadways.
But at our last special board meeting on the repositioning, as we were understanding the presentation from Margaret and Natalie, or from Natalie here, is that if we go forward to do this work, and I'm not sure if is the right word, because one doesn't walk away from that kind of money, but then it affects the calculations and the choices of our repositioning strategy. Is that right, Margaret or Natalie? You're on mute, though.
That would be correct. That would be the worry, that you would lessen the argument for kind of the maximum benefit that the housing authority could get through a RAD application conversion by going forward with the work.
Is there any alternative though, or is there anything, is this just sort of a board information item?
No, I mean, my recommendation would be, one of the things that we're going to need to do as part of, once the RAD application goes in, is to actually procure the services of an architectural and engineering firm for Cook and Seabeds. And I would use the capital fund money that you have to obligate by that date certain as the source of funding for that contract. Because the last thing you want to do is return any money to HUD unused, particularly, given the needs of the property. And by, using the capital fund program to cover some of the initial architectural expenses will just help the overall financing as we put together the financing plan for the RAD conversion.
So translating that into specifics that Steve just presented, if I'm understanding what you're saying from this chart, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to award an A&E designer firm contract or do something that constitutes obligation for the fiscal year 2021 grant. It must be obligated by February 22nd. Is that a fair statement or not?
Could we do an architectural contract by then? I think we could.
Okay.
The process is a much more simplified process than what you did, what the state process requires, which requires DHCD drafting the RFP, DHCD reviewing the initial responses at the State Designer Selection Committee. All of those things add weeks and months to the schedule. But under the federal program, you're able to proceed with an architectural selection outside of that. You still might opt to use your local designer selection committee, yet you're not bound to or required to do, but it's proven to be a excellent committee and provides good input to the process. But all of that stuff could be done between now and whatever date we pick, whether it's still last week in January or the first week in February, to have a recommendation to your board, even with the challenges of the holidays.
And then the next date is 4/15/2023, the deadline for obligation. That's for the 2019 grant funds.
And I would suspect that the contract amount would be enough for the architectural to cover both of those obligations.
And Steve is saying, did I hear you correctly, on the 2018 funds, it has a date strangely of 5/28. We're sort of all backwards because of the COVID delays here. And there's nothing left. So that's really, this one is not really an issue. So the strategy that you are going to be working with Steve about is to decide, no decision or recommendation is for tonight. This is more a board information item, but decide what is in the highest and best interest of the housing authority, recognizing that those roofs really need to be done. And there's no question about it. And did you tell me before the meeting that some of them are leaking already?
There are leaks. Gary, if you're on.
I think Gary is there, but maybe on the phone.
But yeah, there is. Gary, you listening?
You muted, Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about the roofs at Robert Cook Drive particularly, but we talked a little bit about roof leakage that's been going on. Is that?
Yes, two of the buildings, 31 through 32 to 42, and then the other block 48 through 56. We have roof leakage that we've patched several times. And right now those two are in dire need.
So I think we have to rely on our professional staff, meaning, Steve and Gary, working with our other professional staff, Cambridge Housing Authority, to kind of, make the right judgment as to what to be done here. I hear also, if we do postpone some of the roofs, it's not forever. It's just for like a year, getting those old roofs last another year kind of decision. Is that right? Or am I hearing that wrong?
I don't know what the timetable would be on potential work. The other thing that comes up, and I haven't had a chance to talk with Margaret or Natalie, it was just on a phone call this morning or Zoom meeting. We're looking at what to reposition under, and you're looking under, I believe, section 18 for this type of work, which would give you that returns to fair cloth units to need them. In the public housing industry, there's real concern over what HUD is trying to do with the annual contributions contract, where they're trying to make it a grant program instead of contract. And one of the targets, it's speculated on that, is that because these fair cloth units are kind of stacking up around the country because of repositioning, that could be a death knell to those fair cloth units. Because it becomes not a grant, it becomes a grant, not a contract. So it's something that if you'd like my opinion would be that I think that Cook's Bridge could be improved immensely by utilizing the current capital fund program and then doing a repositioning as a voluntary repositioning, which would then increase the amount of income that comes in. But you would lose the fair cloth units, which may happen anyway.
Well, I don't think we're making recommendations tonight, or
No,
anything, because it's a very tricky,
Trying to-
yeah. It's kind of where you're coming from
Yeah,
at this moment, And I hear you also saying a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Let's not count, let's definitely take advantage of, very long deferred maintenance stuff that these roofs have represent. They should have
Can I
been
just
done
ask for
5 years.
clarification? Steve, and you're talking about the fair cloth becoming a non-contract and possibly a grant program, meaning you'll have to apply for a fair cloth unit?
not fair cloth, no, the ACC, which is the annual contributions contract that has historically been signed between housing authorities and HUD every year. And that's their promise that they will pay.
The operating
operating
budgets
stuff.
and all that?
Faircloth was a congressman that put an amendment in back in the mid-90s that said the number of public housing units in the country could not be increased. That's what the Faircloth amendment is. So what it is if you reposition, now those units are not counted as what we term Faircloth units. So now you can actually add units because you're repositioned to a Section 8 program or some other funding program. It's a little technical there,
And we're not ready to discuss it
We're not ready.
No, I
tonight.
was
Yeah.
talking about just a contract in general with the Fed. You'll have to apply for the money that you want.
I can't imagine that would happen.
I don't
That
think
you
so.
the grant would be awarded, but grants can be pulled a lot easier than a contract.
But, contracts can be prorated as well. And so, what the actual distinction between contract and grant, I know the industry, I know we are as the Cambridge Housing Authority concerned about the language that HUD is proposing. And so we've been active in addressing it. And, one of the conversations I've had with Sue Cohn, who's Cambridge Housing Authority's general counsel, was exactly around what Steve mentioned, which is, what happens if the units become grant units, because nobody will underwrite the financing of the grants. And I think it really would cripple the other part of HUD's effort, which is to bring private capital dollars into renovating and preserving, at-risk federal public housing. And they have a lot of desire for the RAD program to be successful. And my sense is that once they understand what the impact of that might be to the lending and a community around these reinvestments in public housing, because the federal government is not going to come up with the, $80 billion of capital needs that public housing units across the country needs. It doesn't have the wherewithal to do that. It really needs to lean into the private funds, private equity funds to help make the improvements that otherwise units are going to be lost. And so, I think that there's a lot more to this story to become. They've been trying to change the ACC now, probably going on about 5 years. This is their most recent effort. And we have to watch it like a hawk and really push back pretty vigorously to make sure that we have the means to protect and preserve these units.
And I'm trying to keep us from getting into the weeds too much, so trying to bring it up a level. These 3 training sessions that we've had now. One of the other factors is the state is not going to let us go forward with what we might do with Linden Chambers if we don't come up with some sort of solution to replacing the state subsidy there. That pays, for, and so if phase 1 conceptually, and we're now going to get into the real stuff, but conceptually is to take down 28 of the Linden Street units and develop 56 or 60 replacement units. It's one, you have to get the money to actually do the construction, but you also have to get some type of subsidy to do that. And so having those fair cloth units being, kind of recycled out of what we're doing with our repositioning is good, not only for the Linden Chambers, but down the road for the High Rock Estates one, because again, we want to go from, single family residence to duplexes, let's say, so you need to come up with more subsidy units, more fair cloth units for that as well down the road. So it's a really challenging issue that I think that this sort of smaller team wanted to just share a little bit of this with the board. This has come out recently, and we're kind of wrestling with it. So, and our team, our executive director and his team and the Cambridge Housing Authority are going to try to make the best decision they can.
Okay.
Any further comments, questions, or discussion? And I think we're now back to the agenda here on the quarterly PRI financial report isn't ready and it's not in your packet, so we won't be discussing that tonight. I wanted a touch base on the CPA funding applications. If you look at the Cambridge Housing Authority report, monthly report on page 82, those of you who got that far, you'll see it. We had been considering 3 possible applications. And one is for more money for Linden Chambers, which we know we're going to need down the road. One of them, and I'm not going to get into details, but the second one would be more money for doing the seabeds cook, modernization and preservation. And some of the preservation work can be covered with CPA funding. And the third one was to perhaps do something with related to High Rock Homes repositioning, which we really haven't started to think about yet. In our last meeting, bi-weekly staff meeting, we decided to eliminate number 3 there. And so right now, we have first drafts of number 1 and 2. We have actually second drafts of number 1 and 2. And just heads up for the next board meeting, we'll have the final drafts of those CPA funding applications in the November meeting and for approval so that they can go in by the CPA application deadline, which is December 1st. So that's the update there. And lastly, but not leastly, I will just, we did put an request for services out for legal counsel, and we only got 1 proposal. And after sort of reviewing the proposal, it wasn't necessarily a really exciting proposal. There's some reasons we think that the timing might have been wrong, having to do with what's going on in the industry, the very small industry of legal firms that bid on this sort of stuff. We're not in a huge hurry on this, and so the decision was made to wait until after the first of the new year to and then reissue it again and see if we can get some more choices here before we actually bring that before the board for approval. So that's
I just have a quick question that goes back to the A&E proposal that we approved tonight. What's the process for getting a contract in place on that? And will we have legal counsel review that contract?
Natalie or Margaret, you want to take that one?
So the form is prescribed by DHCD, so it's
Oh, okay.
a well-established form.
Okay.
And there won't be any amendments or changes to it. And so I don't, I think, there's very little latitude to make changes. So it's already been pretty well vetted by DHCD's legal counsel and has been found to be satisfactory.
Great.
Good
Thanks.
question.
Margaret, what in your experience, or Natalie, given that it's, pretty much a pre-negotiated thing, when do we expect to be having Steve execute that on our behalf? Time-wise.
I would say possibly as early as next week.
Wow.
Yeah, usually what we do is ask them to, we'll have them sign the contract, look for them to get insurance, their insurance certificates with the Needham Housing Authority named as a named insured, get evidence that the person who's signing on behalf of the architectural firm is authorized to obligate the firm under their their bylaws or corporate structure. And we put together a package of that information and then send it over to the executive director or the interim executive director for review and signature.
Great. And then just thank you, Eleanor, because I didn't think that and then what? Is there some sort of kickoff meeting?
Exactly. Then there's a kickoff meeting. In fact, we'll probably work while they're getting the paperwork together for the contract, look to get that scheduled for sometime in the next 2 weeks, because we want to make use of time. I know, and get them started so that we can figure things out sooner than later.
Yeah. I think we've been trying to do this since you were a board member, haven't we? Cheryl.
Great.
It's about to get real.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'll just have to say, as part of the High Rock team, and we intentionally left, a fair amount of, and you guys have been using it now, the 600,000 or so in development proceeds, with the hope that something more would come from it. So it's a delight, even all these years later, for me to be able to see, one, that you held on to the money, and two, that you're deploying it in the way that folks back then were really on the board, really hoping to see. And I think it's just very exciting for Needham Housing Authority and the town of Needham.
Actually, I hadn't planned to bring this up, but that amount of money is $628,661 in our balance sheet, in case, here, which actually I highlighted it here because it hasn't changed in 10 years, that number. And it hasn't really changed in the last couple of months either. So I was just curious why that might be the case. You don't have to answer it right now. This is a follow-up question.
Ready for you, but that's okay.
Oh, where you can, if you are.
Well, Sean and I, we talked about it when they were there, but it has changed. It's just the money's going in and going out. So we paid Cambridge Housing Authority through the Needham Housing Authority revolving account, and we reimbursed, and we've taken the money from the management account, but we put it back in from the CPA.
Well,
reimbursements.
Let's talk about on the agenda, but are you impressed? You have already, yeah. Good.
My numbers matched up with Sean's numbers.
All right.
So I was pretty
All right.
impressed with
I
that.
still have a couple of questions for tonight, so let's get back to the rest of the agenda. But first, thank you very much to our Cambridge Housing Authority guest unless you really want to stay for the rest of the meeting. You know, I don't think we need to do that, but really, speaking on behalf of the board, you know, we really appreciate, you have made all the difference to get into this point. And I want to just thank you and also particularly thank the local steering committee for doing such an excellent job. I do like the idea of keeping myself, keeping them warm, you know, so that if we are doing some more A&E designer local selection committee kind of work, that we can kind of roll them back out into action next spring or next first quarter. So
I could just, I would like to particularly thank Natalie for her shepherding of the committee. I thought it was, everything was provided. You know, we originally had Margaret, but we were in good hands with Natalie, so I appreciate it.
I know you were in exceptional hands with Natalie.
Exceptional hands to be accurate, yes.
Yes, so
So, as you can tell by her report.
excellent. Thank you so much and have a nice evening.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we are now status update. We have a certificate of substantial completion to consider on page 83 of your board packet.
Yes, this is the final siding placement at 28 Robert Cook Drive, which would, your approval tonight will allow us to draw down that money from fiscal year 2018 and partially from 2019 from the capital fund and pay this bill. If you have any questions, if Gary can say a quick word on the quality and the completion of this job.
So everything went fairly smoothly. We had a few hiccups, but we made up a small punch list, which they came back and took care of last week. So everything's up to par at this point. Gutters were put back on, lights were put back on the building, and everything looks like in good shape. We're ready to sign off on the final completion of this project.
Super. Any questions from anybody from the board?
No.
Hearing none, would somebody like to make a motion to approve this, of the approval, approve this substantial certificate of can't talk anymore, substantial completion here?
Could you repeat that?
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the certificate of substantial completion for this project?
In the amount of $79,888.
It's actually
motion
the final completion. It's substantial
completion,
and
the
final completion all in
All right.
one.
Yes, I hear Ed helping me out to make a motion here.
I shall move.
And do I hear a second?
Can-
Second from, I think Penny got in there under the wire. Any further discussion? We will do a roll call vote. Eleanor Evans,
Eleanor Evans votes aye.
Lee Kirk,
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Dennis Bennett,
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Ed Scheidler,
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
and Rich Foster votes aye. So that is approved unanimously. Next item is we have the after-school program report. Jessica Reese needed to leave us, so is it you stand in for her or somebody else here?
It's, the program's been going for just about a month now. She gave us a little report.
Page 89.
Page 89. And things are moving along quite well. I had a chance to meet a few of the Babson kids this week and
Margaret
and we met
Burgess,
with
Margaret Burgess and the assistant principal of Elliott. Yeah,
that's right, we had a meeting with,
yeah.
with the Elliott school people and Jess is doing, I think she's doing a great job getting it going. Kids are coming back. Some coming every day. Some come on certain days, some come on other days. It's obviously a work in progress, but there's good stuff going on there.
Yeah.
And the Elliott school people are very excited to be part of it.
Super.
They're gonna work with the tutors and get them up to speed on math programming, so to speak, by way of games. Their math curriculum includes a lot of math games
Mhm.
for homework help. So the assistant principal will come and work with the tutors and Jessica and teach them how those math games work, how the school uses those games to help the kids to strategize their math problems.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
And there's a parents' night coming up, I think, was it the school or math.
Yeah,
night?
there's a math
A math
fair.
night, a math
Math
fair
night,
that they
And the
invited.
tutors have been invited to go to that so that they can also get up to speed on what the school department is doing with the math books. Really exciting. The school department is so happy to have this extra resource for the kids, so.
And
Is
just
that well
without,
fit?
giving away, and they have referred someone who, a young man who lives here, who actually goes to High Rock, he's in 6th grade,
That's right.
which is the High Rock School, for some extra help through our program, so it's, yeah.
Well, great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Any other questions that, do we have a after-school budget pulled together yet for 22?
We don't yet,
Not quite
but
yet.
it's operating, and we're, you know, there's nothing that they're lacking right now, just keeps us informed. And the budget is in process, kind
Okay.
of seeing what we're spending,
Good.
but
Yes, Ed.
Once we accept this van, is there any plan to use that van to transport children from High Rock to be able to attend the Cook's program?
I asked that, I can answer this,
Okay.
partly, during our committee meeting for the after-school program, it was decided that there would be a policy created for use of that van,
Yeah. I missed that discussion. Yeah, I'm sure this.
because, you know, just so there's no confusion, because, we haven't had a van in over
Forever.
20 years.
And
And I kind of forget, but I know there was people that wanted to take it that were
So
not,
the concern maybe is that there will be more uses for the van than there is hours in the day for the van to do it or something like that.
well,
Yeah.
hopefully not, but, I think it should be used strictly for the children. I think that's
Mhm.
on, you know, maybe possibly be for elderly appointments.
Well,
no, it
my,
is, it's not strict, the gift is not strictly. for the
Yeah, I think
children.
I read that.
It's for the
somewhere in
housing
report.
authority, so it's.
Yeah, so you want someone responsible
Well,
for
my-
driving that.
my suggestion, well, obviously, you're always gonna
Mm.
need somebody who's licensed. You know, it's not your regular driver's license necessarily. Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah.
Regular driver.
All right, so, what I would suggest is that we ask our staff to address that question. Oh, and we can talk about it a little bit more when we're approving the ban and make it part of what we decide here, so, good point. What's the there's a Friends of After School, Cooks After School item here on the agenda, is that?
Yeah, and that's the committee that worked all summer as the steering committee. I don't know if if you have a meeting.
Laurie did
Or
reach out to
January.
me was looking for some dates and she did phrase it as the Friends of the After School, maybe she didn't, but I think it was decided at our second to last meeting that once the tutors were oriented, that basically the two commissioners on that steering committee, well, I guess we were asked to remain on as Friends of the After School program. That was before Laurie got here, and so she actually included the other volunteer members of the committee, and I told her that I think that we had dwindled it down to the two commissioners as the Friends of the After School program, just for any type of oversight that came down the pike, and I'm not sure.
We'll see how things evolve, it sounds like what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, the school's been only roughly in session for a month. so-
No, there's new bumps in the road and will come up, I'm sure.
Yeah, so, but yeah, it's a little early for any concerns right now, but
All right, I'm gonna try to move this along, given the lateness of the hour, paving, no, sorry, plan to do, return unit 42 to service.
It's in process.
Still in
It's gonna take, yeah, it's still offline and But it's now, our vacancies, if you may have noticed, in the
Zero,
management report are really down to,
you know,
they're
two,
not quite to zero.
they're two.
There's two, yeah. Gary's telling me
That's
he wants to
amazing.
get down to zero for a few days. But we keep, you know, we get notice of new vacancies, so, but, yeah, the vacancy rate has gone down considerably. So that will allow us to get in there and do that work.
Paving project.
So we are talking with, companies to come out and look at what we need, and that's Gary is bringing, paving design. Gary, you worked with someone before it?
So we're gonna ask, we've used Allen and Major, they're the ones that did Seabed's Way. And they're actually the same company that's doing a paving project. Right now, it's in process for Linden Street. So we're gonna ask them to come out and do a design for us for the Cooks or finish seabeds with the funds we have at this time.
So the
And we're
design-
actually meeting,
Go ahead.
and we're actually meeting with another company on Monday for the roofs. For Robert Cook also.
Moving
So
along.
Moving
Yeah,
along,
so-
this will give us more accurate pricing as well.
So what you're saying is it's either it's Seabeds or Cooks, it's gonna be either or, not both?
I'm not saying that, it depends on what pricing comes up and what we decide on, what the board decides on.
Right, so it's all in the
we need to
funding.
get harder numbers than just what we, put in the budget, so. And the budget was prepared, it's the 2019 budget, I think, so, or 2020, and it's a couple of years ago, things have changed in that world.
Yeah,
That's
the money
pricing,
wise.
yeah, so we need to get a little better handle on what.
Change with meaning for the worst, the prices are
Yeah,
gone
prices
up.
have gone up.
Yeah, right. Okay, update on Linden Chambers camera issues. If any.
They're working, Gary's working hard on a deal. Not a deal, but they're
So-
reposition, go ahead.
We actually met with the manufacturer of the company. The president of the company came out and met with him last week. And he came up with a couple of solutions and replacing a couple of the antennas and adding a few DVR boxes throughout the site. It's probably gonna be mostly a swap out. He's willing to take back the old antennas and provide us with the newer, higher strength antennas to get us so all the Wi-Fi and stuff isn't bottlenecking back to the community room. And we're gonna have 2 other DVRs on the sites to make it so it work better for us. And it's probably gonna be a change order of just labor and very minimal parts. So I met with him last week, I believe it was, last Monday, and they're working on that to come back with the new antennas.
Got our fingers crossed then.
We do, we
Okay,
still haven't paid them in full, so we still owe them quite a bit of money, so
Good,
I'm sure they want it.
good. Seabed's Way and Cook, CCTV, any update there?
Yeah, we have a design. Cheryl had arranged for this fellow to come out and has designed a system here. What we're waiting on that now is whether we get the extension of the $250,000 security grant that was awarded. We don't, right now it's expired, but we're gonna apply for an extension. We're gonna do that. Once we do, that'll be a go for it.
Well, I hate to raise this at this late hour and certainly not for discussion, but just for recollection. Our residents, as far as I can tell, are about evenly divided between what I will call the big brother watching you camp. And this is a good thing for security camp, and so I know I don't I want to bring it up just so it's brought up. Somebody's listening to our recording. And is there going to be some sort of process to review? We promised a few times before you got here that once we got that final design, then there would be resident input or at least, information on the design.
Absolutely.
And I'm not sure we'll ever get consensus on these 2 camps because I think both sides have like pretty good reasons, for feeling the way they do. So, anyway. All right, resident survey.
I just gave you the final copy that has gone out in the mail this week.
It's
To
on
every
page
resident.
91, yeah.
Um, We've asked for returns by November 4th. We've offered a little incentive to come in and they'll have a drawing for surprises and
Super.
see if we can do better than 51.
Yeah.
I will also just say again, because it's good for both of your time, Cheryl and Steve, but you may already know this, that after we got that first round in last year, we went through several iterations of kind of struggle of figuring out how to summarize it, so the results could be reviewed and, you know, kind of look for useful clues on how, what's going on, both good and maybe things that we could do to be improving it. And Ed finally stepped in, and I think with help from Penny, and he cracked the code on this and produced a sort of spreadsheet summary that captured not only the quantitative results in a way that we could all understand finally, but also the qualitative results, which are we got a lot of, like, several pages of just individual handwritten comments, and you know, how to summarize that without necessarily violating the privacy or, you know, the anonymity of the respondent. So I would suggest you take a look at what we finally kind of noodled our way through to, and then use that as a point of departure, and maybe it can be improved some more.
Okay.
So thank you, Ed, just in case.
Thank you, Ed.
You thought I had forgotten. Yes,
No, I'll be happy to do it again. Yeah.
well, it's a lot of work to do it, so
Betty has her hand raised.
first person, oh, go ahead, Betty.
Well, first of all, Ed deserves all of your credit for that. I
Okay.
don't remember participating very well with that at all. But also, I'd like to clarify back a little bit. Lori's been in touch with me about the Friends of Cooks and talked to me about possibly being involved with writing grants, which I've done in the past. And I'd already planned to do that because it was part of the committee's decisions. So yesterday I finished a grant proposal for 2 events that would take place for the children of the after school program. And I've let her know that I'm doing that. And also, as of the 24th, next week, the Mass Cultural Council is making another grant available with more money. And I'm going to go for a grant for a musical performance for the children and a musical performance for everybody. And I'm hoping the band might be participating in getting people to that event. So that, it was a $1,300 grant that I did yesterday. And the next one will be, I think, a little bit bigger. But then after that, I told Lori, I'll talk with her about my role. I'm glad to show her how to do these grants. And we'll decide how much involvement I'll have.
Excellent.
Sound good, Steve?
Yeah, that's
Great.
very helpful.
Okay, we're at the end of status updates, internal initiatives. We're now at the home stretch with new business acceptance of the donation of a van from the town of Needham. We've already sort of had a little bit of discussion on that. So any other further discussion, any other points you want to make about this? I assume this still has some miles left on it. It's not, you know, just a rusting hulk of a van that isn't going to be helpful to us.
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
This is, and as it mentioned in here, John Regan, who's the fleet maintenance for DPW, has looked at it. They've done some work on it. They just have described it as fair working order. So it's ready to go. In fact, Tim from the Board of Health emailed me this morning, asking me if we had accepted it yet. So they're ready to make this happen. Upon the vote, we'll get paperwork going with the RMV and get it on board. It is it's described as a 12-passenger van, which would keep it under a regular driver's license rather than a CDL. And you know, we will insure it through our insurance.
Okay. Does any board members have any questions on that at all?
No, the supervisor over at DPW has looked at it and he's put his blessing on it, so.
Yeah.
And
We know it's 10 years old, so.
Penny, you still have your hand up. Do you have a question or comment?
Oh, no, I don't.
Okay, Eleanor, do you have one?
No,
So I have one question. So that's the hardware, but, who's, not, is there like a full-time position or a half-time position we need for people to drive it, or what's the intention? Budgetarily to deal with that part of it?
Yeah, it's something that will be available for use, by our employees, because they're on our insurance. That's,
Mhm.
it will have to be someone named on our insurance. Right now it's not, I don't intend to see it used as a regular schedule. But we do want the opportunity for, if there are young people, like for High Rock, that want them down for the after-school program. That's something we could work out, potentially. Assign current staff to drive, make those trips. It can't be over programmed. We don't have a budget line item for a driver. We don't have that. So that's,
Is that something we should be thinking about?
we'll be thinking about it. It's one of these things, let's get the bird in hand and then we'll deal with the policy.
You might give some thought to, including the commissioners along with the employees in the insurance, because I can make myself available on very short notice. Janice has experience driving a van.
Go bus.
So,
I mean, we'll try to
might fill some gaps for you.
we'll try to come with a policy for the board to.
I'm not really interested though, so.
But, for volunteers, if there's volunteers who want to offer their services.
Yeah, I would
We'll have
volunteer
to-
on.
But we
on
would
a-
have to make it so that they're named on insurance. That's also, there would be, ramp up period. If somebody decided to volunteer, it's not like, okay, here are the keys. No, we have to put them on insurance.
What would be the best way, and you don't have to answer that, I don't want to, I think we should answer and get in the discussion tonight, but reason I have the driver thing is, over the years, there's been the accumulation of possible needs for the van that we've never had. If we had a driver, and you're nodding your head, so maybe it goes back forever. And so what do I mean? I mean, things like, there's bunches of people at Linden Chambers who don't have a car, who are walking all the way around to Roach Brothers or to the train station, the bus station, or the hospital or something. Or needing to get to the senior center, which is, a wonderful resource, but it's kind of like a long way away when you're 70, 80 years old here.
They pick people up.
And
They have a van.
right. There's people here at Seabeds and Cook, I'm just doing this off the top of my head, who actually have a job where they take the commuter rail into, somewhere it takes you, or the bus. But I'm thinking, Needham Heights is a hike from here. Is there, are there, maybe just plant the seed of sort of thinking about what we could do with, assuming it's going to go through as a result of our vote here, and see what ideas are out there.
Well, do we need a committee?
I would rely on staff to tell us the answer to that.
I would think Lori would certainly be a great
Exactly.
resource to determine that.
Right. And maybe it almost, I wish I had thought about it, but you could have put it in the questionnaire that just went out day before yesterday, saying, gee, if we had a van, what would you think you would need it for? But that we could still do something like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, do I hear a motion, which is on that page 95? If you look at the bottom, I'll make it, the Needham Housing, or does somebody else want to make it? Go ahead. The Needham Housing Authority, with gratitude to the town of Needham, accepts the donation of a 2012 Ford E350 van from the Health and Human Services Department as previously approved by the Needham Select Board, I guess, for donation to us.
Yeah.
Do I hear a second on that?
I second.
Second, Scheidler, any further discussions? All those in favor,
so you
please.
have to do it roll call.
Roll call. I almost got through the whole meeting without forgetting that. Eleanor Evans,
Eleanor Evans votes aye.
Penny Kirk,
Any Kirk folks, aye.
and Janice Bennett,
Janice Bennett votes aye.
and Ed Scheidler.
Scheidler votes aye.
And Reg Forrester votes a big eye for that one as well. I think this has real potential. So thank you for making this happen. So that passes unanimously. I think we're at the end of the agenda. And
Make a motion to adjourn.
I will just make we got a motion from Penny
Second,
and a second from Janice. I just make a note that we didn't put it at the bottom of the agenda like we usually did, but our next meeting is on November 17th. And then there will be another meeting on the third Thursday of December. I will call the roll one last time. Eleanor Evans,
Eleanor Evans votes aye.
Penny Kirk,
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett,
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Ed Scheidler,
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
and Reg Tucker votes aye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to staff for the
Right.
meeting
Yeah.
and everything you're doing. And see you next month.
Thank
I
you.
think we should congratulate our visitor for having the
all
endurance to
night.
stay here.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
happy
very much for
birthday to
coming.
Ed yesterday.
Mhm.
Okay. Dude, it's not every day you turn 64.
That's right.
Jeez, congratulations. Eleanor Rigby here. The Beatles song.
I should note that Penny was the first one off the tee. See you guys.
Not me, huh?
Yesterday's your birthday.